What's up guys, it's Light Spiral here, and today I'm going to be bringing you a video on why I believe that despair is very bad in Giants B10. So this video is intended towards beginners or people that are trying to bridge into their first Giants B10 team, not really the later game players. So keep that in mind. If you already have a Giants B10 team, this video might not have a lot of value to you, but it might, I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, warning, this is more for the newer players. So basically there are a couple units that are really popular in beginners Giants B10 teams that people will tend to want to run on despair because they either have an AoE or someone else tells them to use it on despair. And using despair is okay. I don't think despair is a bad rune set. I just think it is not good for your first Giants B10 team. Of course, if you can beat it with despair, fair enough. But if you're having trouble making your first team, then despair might be something that's really holding you back a lot. So some examples of pretty popular monsters that people use on despair in their first Giants teams. Off the top of my head, the first one I think of is, if I can find her, Shannon. A ton of people will want to run Shannon on despair because this skill right here does do an AoE, so that does warrant despair. And I do think if people have an AoE, it is cool to have them on despair, but just not in Giants. In TOA, despair is always good, but not in Giants. Other monsters people like to use on despair include stuff like, where is she? Right here. Cases. People run a Cases on despair for the same reason. The second skill is an AoE attack, so despair would have a chance to AoE stun. There's other stuff people will use. People that do use Shimite could use despair. Whatever. There's a bunch of monsters. People that use this guy. He's got an AoE attack, and people will use him on despair. Although he's not as popular in Giants, I'm aware, but there is a few people that do choose to use him in Giants, as well as there's AoE daughters that people will like to run on despair. I don't know if this guy is that. No, this guy does not have the AoE dot skill, but the water lizard man some people do use in Giants, and he has an AoE dot skill right here. Actually, does the wind one have the same one? Okay, yeah, so the wind and the water one both have the same second skill. It's AoE and does dots. So, basically, the reason why I don't think despair is good in Giants is because it is completely useless on the boss stage. Having despair on the boss stage is equivalent to not even having a 4 set. You might as well just have a broken set there. But so, I'm aware it does help in the first 4 stages, but I don't know that many people that struggle beating the first 4 stages. Most people get stuck at the boss stage. That is typically the hardest stage just because the boss stats are really good, as well as the defense break and attack buff can really make the boss do a ton of damage. Even like on my monsters, I've seen the boss crit for about 50,000 on a counter attack when he has attack buff and I have defense break. I've seen him crit about 50,000 on some of my monsters here, so I'm aware the boss hits really hard. But so my suggestion is, in Giants, if you're having trouble beating it, switch any despair units you may have for Swift. So Swift will help you in the first stages. It'll give you more speed, so you get more turns, so you get more buffs off, more debuffs, more whatever, more heals. And then in the boss stage, Swift will actually do something, whereas despair doesn't do anything. So a despair stun every there and then might help you clear the first stages, but you got to be honest with yourself, and is the first 4 stages the reason you're losing Giants, or is it the last stage as to why you're losing Giants? I would say probably around at least 95% of you guys are losing on the boss stage and not on the first 4 stages, because it's just the first 4 stages are just easier. And that's just how this dungeon works. That's kind of how all 3 of the dungeons work. Now, in terms of the other dungeons, I'm talking about Giants here, but Despair isn't good in any of the dungeons, I wouldn't say. But people don't tend to run Despair in their Dragons and Necro teams. That's more of a Giants thing, where people like Shannon and Acasis are the two big ones that I know a lot of people that want to run Despair on those two. And people will even run teams with Shannon and Acasis in them, and they'll both be on Despair. But that's just like 8 wasted runes, basically. Like the runes, the stats aren't wasted, but the set effect is completely wasted. So I would recommend Swift. Of course, you could do 2 energy sets instead of a Swift set. But basically, on your Giants team, Swift energy is the way to go. Speed, HP, like whatever. And you don't need Despair. I don't think I need too much more explaining on that. If there's any questions, comments, or concerns, be sure to just tell me in the comments. I might have forgot something or made something unclear. But the basic message of this is Despair is just wasted rune sets because you can't stun the Giant, and the Giant is what people really do have trouble on. So Swift will make the Giant easier, as well as it'll just not be wasted runes. So that's why I recommend that you don't use Despair in your beginner like Giants teams. Well, I don't recommend Despair in any of your Giants teams, but this is more targeted at the beginners. So that's really all I have for today, though, guys. Like I said a second ago, any questions, comments, or concerns, just tell me in the comments. Also, if there's any other videos you want to see, like any teams or something, reviews you want to see, be sure to mention that in the comments as well. But that's really all I have for today, though, guys. So may the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows.